everyone, I'm Katie. I'm from an organisation called Biofuelwatch, and I'm here today to explain a little bit about what biomass is and to ask and hopefully answer the question of whether it's a sustainable solution or an eco-disaster. So I'm going to start with a quick quiz. Just get a pen and paper, and I want you to quickly write down which of the following energy sources you consider to be renewable and which you consider to be non-renewable sources of energy. So you've got to choose out of wind, solar, coal, gas, petrol, biomass, tidal, and hydropower, which you think are renewable and which you think are non-renewable. So what is bioenergy? Biomass energy, or bioenergy, is energy generated from living or decaying plant or animal waste. And just like fossil fuels such as coal or gas, biomass, also known as biofuel, contains lots of chemical energy. There are different types of biofuels. Liquid biofuels, such as bioethanol, which is alcohol fermented from plants, or vegetable oils, often hydro-treated vegetable oils. These come from plants like oilseed rape, which is the yellow fields of flowers you see in the summer, and they can be used in cars and other transport, just like petrol and diesel can. Then solid biofuels, often wood, often called biomass, can be burned to heat homes and other buildings or to generate electricity. And biogas, often a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide, can be burned for heating or to generate electricity. And biogas can be produced from agricultural waste, manure, municipal waste, plant material, sewage, green waste, and food waste. So how does a biomass power station work? Biomass power station works exactly the same way as a fossil fuel power station. Biomass, such as wood, is burned, giving off heat, and the chemical energy is transferred into heat energy, and then the heat is used to boil water to create steam. The steam expands and it builds up enough pressure to turn turbines, and the heat energy is transferred to kinetic or movement energy. The turbines turn generators which contain electromagnets. This creates a flow of electricity, so that kinetic energy is transferred into electrical energy. And this electricity is supplied to the grid for use at home, work, or school. You might recognise this photo. It's Drax power station. It's the UK's largest biomass power station, and it's actually based in Yorkshire, in Selby. It was built in the 70s to burn coal, and it's been burning wood and coal since 2003, and now it mostly burns wood. It's the world's largest wood burning power station. It burns wood in the form of pellets and burns more wood than the UK produces every single year. So where does this wood come from? All of the wood that Drax burns is shipped in from overseas. The majority comes from the southern US. Wood is also imported from Canada and the Baltic states, Estonia and Latvia. There's some images of some forests in these countries below. So the wood that Drax burns travels a very long way. It comes by ship into the UK and then is transported by train, like the train that you saw in the picture before, from the various ports to the power station. So as most of the wood that Drax burns comes from the southeast US, we're just going to watch a short film that shows a bit about where the wood comes from and the impacts that it has.
When anybody thinks of clean, green energy, this is not it. So at the very local level, you've got pollution, then span out a little bit, and you've got large-scale clear cutting. And then at the global level, you've got an industry that is burning these trees to generate electricity, making climate change worse. So yes, this is impacting all of us with disproportionate impacts to the people who live right next to the mill.
There was a truck right there. There was another truck. That's what we heard all day and all night. This is a little small town, rural area, poor area. But ever since this plant been here, everybody's whole lives have changed. And the plant is right behind my house, right in my back door.
Enviva is the world's largest producer of biomass. At its plant in Northampton, North Carolina, trees are processed into wood pellets and then shipped overseas. Once in Europe, the pellets are then burned as clean energy to generate electricity in power plants. And after the European Union classified biomass as a renewable energy source, the American South emerged as Europe's primary source of biomass.
For some reason, the southeastern U.S. has been forgotten. It's almost like people living in these rural communities don't matter. This is a sacrifice zone. These wood pellets aren't even producing electricity here. We've seen a pattern of the wood pellet industry targeting low-income communities of color. Before the wood pellet industry even came in here, this rural community was struggling. Even though in this county, the majority of the population is black, 99% of the land in the rural South is owned by white people. So there is a very long history of perpetuating economic inequity.
When you look at our communities and you see communities of color, and this is where it is, that we have these factories here that's polluting our air. They're cutting down all of our trees. We need these trees. No wonder we're dying. And then we don't have that opportunity or that privilege to get up and move when some comes and invade our territory. And then how many people want to move? Why should we when we've been here all our lives and we've worked hard to accumulate what we have? And then you come and sit and right dab in the middle of our community and think that we're supposed to be happy about it? Hell no.
Enviva says they choose facility locations based on access to wood, infrastructure, and labor.
So this forest that we're looking at right here is about 100 years old, and within a week it was gone, clear cut, turned into wood pellets. We know this went to Enviva because we followed the logging trucks with the cypress trees back to the Enviva plant.
Enviva says they received about 25% of the trees from this tract.
Once this wood is cut, they're being processed in these mills that are emitting massive amounts of pollution that are known to be hazardous to human health. The wood dust is fine particulate matter. When you breathe it in on a regular basis, it causes heart problems, it causes respiratory problems. It can lead to cancer.
Enviva says the air quality levels found near the Northampton facility are within the federal limits and do not present a public health risk.
Yeah, you can see it on the top of the hood. Look at this one. Everything that's in the yard getting dust on it. I'm dealing with health issues with heart problems, congestion heart failure. And on top of that, I'm dealing with pressure on my lungs and don't know where it keep coming from. I had to wear a mask every day coming out here and this stuff, way before the COVID. I mean, sometimes my nose be bleeding and dust and stuff. It messes with my wife and my son asthma all the time. They don't even sit outside. It makes me angry because I don't know what I'm inhaling.
When you go over to the wood pellet mill, you see the pollution coming out of the smokestack. That is not clean, that is not green. When it goes over to Europe and it's burned in a power station, it's emitting even more pollution, emitting more carbon than would have been coming out of the smokestacks if they had been burning coal. This is like a needle in a haystack in the southeastern U.S. This is an ancient cypress forest. There's very little of this left. It's just this incredible jewel of an ecosystem that very few people really understand exists here. I mean, this is a really special place. We're looking at trees around us that are over 1,000 years old. And while the forestry industry and the wood pellet industry says that trees are renewable, we aren't renewing 1,000-year-old ecosystems. You know, they're renewing forests for commercial production. In North Carolina alone, the wood pellet industry is responsible for clearing 164 acres of forest a day, 60,000 acres a year.
By us being in a poor area, what can we do with a company like that with money and we don't got money to fight against it? And it seems like we don't got no one fighting for us. I don't know what it's gonna take, but something needs to be done about it.
Enviva declined to be interviewed on camera for this story, but provided written statements to CNN.
Okay, so just thinking about what you've just watched in the video, what issues of concern did it raise? And who is affected by biomass production? I'll just give you a little bit longer to talk amongst yourselves. Make sure everybody gets to have a say. Okay, so if you want to just wind up your conversations and we'll come back to the slides. Okay. So there are many harmful impacts to the communities that live near the forest who want to have forests to enjoy, and to the pellet mills with the pollution that they cause, the forests themselves, the animals that live in them. The southern US has very biodiverse hotspots where endangered animals live, such as the cerulean warbler that's pictured here. And any animal that has the forest it lives in cut down, they're losing their home. So given all these impacts, why are forests being cut down to burn at Drax? Well, we do urgently need to cut our carbon emissions. In recent years, temperatures have been increasing more rapidly in the past. And the last 7 years have been the hottest on record. Most scientists agree that human behaviour is causing the temperature increase. We're increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane. And these are caused by the burning of fossil fuels, which releases carbon dioxide, deforestation, because trees absorb CO2 and store carbon, so if you cut them down, they can't, and food waste, which creates methane when it breaks down, which is a more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide even. CO2 emissions are now 3 times higher than they were in 1965, and the Earth is starting to warm up. Global temperatures are already increasing and average sea levels are rising, and scientists predict that the impacts of this could be changing location of the Earth's climate belt, making it difficult to grow fruit in some places. This is already happening in parts of Africa. There's going to be flooding of coastal and low-lying communities, and the spread of tropical diseases like malaria into areas that don't have these diseases currently. So, can burning wood help to solve the climate crisis? Well, under carbon accounting rules, bioenergy is treated as carbon neutral and it's classed as a renewable energy. And Drax and other biomass power stations receive huge amounts of money in renewable energy subsidies, and this encourages the burning of wood and the associated forest destruction. But this is based on false assumptions about biomass production and use. And we'll just watch a couple of short videos that help explain this.
So why are wood pellets considered carbon neutral in combustion? And we firmly believe they are. And here's the logic behind it. It begins with an absolute necessary condition that the sourcing of the feedstock to make these pellets is sustainable. If we do that, and that wood turns into wood pellets, goes into a power plant, let's say in England, and is combusted and releases 500 tons of carbon, well, yeah, the atmosphere in England sees 500 tons of carbon, but the atmosphere in Maine sees 500 tons less as the forest sequesters another 500. So the net carbon added to the atmosphere is zero.
What's important is, what does the atmosphere see when you burn trees for energy? Just because forests are growing does not mean that they're immediately sequestering and compensating for the additional CO2 that you're now emitting because you're burning wood. And there's nothing about cutting trees over here that makes those trees over there grow faster. They don't know that these trees over here are being cut. But they would need to grow faster to compensate for the carbon that you're emitting by cutting and burning these trees over here. So that's the central fallacy of industry claims about bioenergy carbon neutrality.
In a long story, we ended up developing an accounting rule for global national reporting that said, for bioenergy purposes, we're going to count the carbon when you cut down the tree, so we don't have to count it again when it goes up the smokestack. And that rule works if and only if you're actually counting the carbon when you cut down the tree.
But the US isn't really reporting those numbers, at least not in an official way. And the UK is not reporting trees that are being cut down in the United States. So when it comes to those trees being burned in UK power plants, those emissions are treated as zero, because if you were counting it both when the tree is cut and at the power plant, then you'd be double counting it.
So a rule that's designed to prevent you from counting carbon twice became a rule that says you never count it at all.
Burning wood actually releases more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than burning coal does. Climate change is really scary, but we need to avoid being scared into accepting false solutions.
We're all scared, but the race to fight climate change must not include false solutions. Forests have the most advanced carbon capture technology on Earth, but their fate is in grave danger. For decades, governments and private profiteers have buddied up to the fossil fuel industry, ignoring the alarms of scientists, poisoning indigenous and frontline communities, and pocketing public funds for private wealth. As communities rose up to demand a transition off fossil fuels, coal companies pivoted to burning biomass. Burning carbon for energy is anything but clean or green. In fact, it's proven to be worse than coal and targets forests in Canada, the US, and Europe. They claim to use wood waste for energy, yet ancient forest ecosystems are being cut down for wood pellets. Now, they are scaling up operations using taxpayer subsidies, falsely claiming that burning forests for fuel is carbon neutral. Forest biomass is not a solution. It's time to move beyond burning. Join us and tell your government the forest is worth more standing.
Do you remember this picture? This is one of the trains that carries the wood pellets to Drax. And you can see it says on the side, under powering the Northern Powerhouse, that it's carrying sustainable biomass for affordable renewable power. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard the term greenwash. The dictionary definition is that it's disinformation disseminated by an organisation so as to present as environmentally responsible public image. Green standards can be useful, but these standards can sometimes be used quite cynically as corporate greenwash. Drax makes many green claims about producing sustainable bioenergy and renewable power. What do you think about these claims? And do you think that they're accurate? Drax is the UK's single biggest carbon emitter. In 2020, it emitted over 13 million tonnes of CO2 from burning 7 million tonnes of wood pellets. This is more wood than any other plant in the world and amounts to the equivalent of 133% of the UK's entire annual wood production, to meet only 0.81% of the country's total final energy demand. Drax makes a lot of money out of claiming to be green. It receives £2.27 million in subsidies every single day. This money comes out of our household energy bills and it's supposed to support renewable energy. Drax is very keen to persuade us the energy it produces is renewable so it can keep on receiving this money. Just last year, 500 scientists signed a letter to President Biden and other world leaders highlighting their concerns with biomass burning. And they cited numerous studies which show that the burning of wood will increase global warming for decades to centuries, and that this is true even when that wood replaces coal, oil, or natural gas. But it's not all doom and gloom. The 2.27 million in subsidies that Drax receives every single day can be redirected to genuine renewable energy such as wind and solar. And planting new trees can help, as trees come ready equipped to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, so planting more is important. Leaving forests to grow is one of the best and easiest things we can do. Proforestation means protecting existing natural forests from human disturbance. Older and middle-aged forests are much better at sucking carbon out of the atmosphere than younger trees, so allowing our old forests to grow and mature is crucial. It's a very easy solution to helping combat climate change, and it also protects all the living things in the forest at the same time. But what about the people who work at Drax? They're just doing their job and they need to earn a living. So we need a just transition to green jobs where workers and communities are not left behind but have a say in how they move forwards towards a green economy. There are many well-paid green jobs that could be made available. We just need the government to prioritise it, see it as important and put the money into getting those jobs available. So I'd like you to discuss in pairs now whether you would now class biomass as a renewable energy source and whether you think we should redirect subsidies to wind and solar. And can you think of a few different reasons for why you think this? Try to think of a couple of reasons for your answer to each question. Okay. Thanks very much for your attention today. If you want any more information, including on the other kinds of biofuels, you can visit our website, biofuelwatch.org.uk. We've also got a Facebook page and Twitter, and there's a group called Cut Carbon Not Forests, and they're campaigning specifically to get the subsidies moved from biomass to wind and solar. And if you've got any questions, please do get in touch by emailing us at biofuelwatch@gmail.com. Thanks again.